Thanks, Steph, and good morning and welcome to conference. It's fantastic to be here. I'm really excited, and it's great to have Steph, one of the champions of the sector, helping us to host the conference again. Really good to work with you, Steph. I don't want to talk about politics much today. I was on this stage 2 years ago when Angela Leadsom pulled out of the race to become the leader of the Conservative Party. And I was literally on the stage saying, there's a lot of uncertainty around and who knows what might happen. And Shane Chowan was shouting up at me saying, Theresa May's become Prime Minister. So who knows what might happen. So if anything happens like that, if she resigns, if she calls a general election, if they call a people's vote, can you just shout at us and tell us? Because otherwise we won't find out. So I'm not going to talk about that. What I want to talk about is about our sector. I want to talk about what our situation is and what our future holds for us, because I think there are some really important areas for us to focus on together for the next few years, and I think it's important to get those out in front of this conference, because I think we're also quite well placed to grow and flourish over the next few years, but we've got a lot of work to do, and you know that, I think. But first off, just to reflect on last night, we had a fantastic evening with the Student of the Year Awards, and congratulations to all the students who won and the colleges who supported them. And we did the premiere of Learning for Life, and we gave a kind of a 10 or 11 minute excerpt, showcase it was called. It was a fantastic piece of video. It was a real inspiring example of what colleges do, the diversity of colleges, the breadth of what they offer, the facilities, the fantastic students telling their stories and talking about why they love their colleges and what they get from them. The role of colleges in truly driving social, cultural, economic transformation. And I said last night, if that doesn't inspire you, then you need to start applying for another job. And I think that's true. Because all of us know that we're here because we believe in colleges. We believe in what colleges do up and down the country, day in, day out, for over 2 million students. And we've got to hang on to that because it's getting very tough. And we've all said this for so long. But if you just think about the figures that we've now secured in the minds of government, not quite with Treasury yet, but with the DFE in particular, and with lots of other people. 30% cut in overall funding over the last 10 years. Young people aged 16 to 18 getting about 14 or 15 hours of teaching in schools and colleges now, compared with Singapore at 30, Sweden at 28 hours. So it's about half of the education that their peers are getting in other countries. That's just not good enough. For adults, it's probably even worse. We've had a halving of the number of learning opportunities for adults in the last decade, a halving. At the very time when employers are saying there are skills shortages and skills gaps all over the place, and migration is dropping because of probably the Brexit, but also the pound getting weaker. So all of those things have been happening. Staff pay has also suffered. Not only have we seen thousands of job cuts in our sector because of that 30% funding cut, but staff pay now lags behind school pay by around 20% at least. And we know that in the next 2 years, there won't be any increases in the funding rates, but costs are rising. And of course, the budget came a couple of weeks ago, and we really didn't expect anything in that budget. And I don't think any commentators expected anything in that budget. But you know what? It was a real kick in the teeth, wasn't it? We didn't expect anything, but why on earth did they put £400 million into schools and £420 million into potholes and nothing into colleges, when all the evidence showed, all of the evidence that they have showed that colleges are the least well-funded part of the education sector? It was really, really tough. I got very angry about that. I got really quite depressed about it. And I suspect many of you did. And I spoke to lots of you at the time. Because colleges got nothing, and nor did the big skills crisis that we face in this country. And I think that was criminal. So it was a budget of politics and potholes, not for the real things that matter, other than obviously those little extras for schools, which went down really badly. And I must admit, I was pretty pleased about that. But it wasn't a surprise, because our focus always was on the spending review, and it still is. The spending review is a really important moment next year where funding will be set from 2020 for about 3 years. We really have to focus on that. The budget was upsetting, and it did make us all angry. There won't be any short-term relief. All of you in colleges are going to have to show your resilience, your resourcefulness, your focus to cope over the next 2 years, because there won't be any relief in the short term. And it is tough because people have lost their jobs. It is tough because the tightrope that leaders in this sector are walking now is really, really narrow. It's so easy just to drop off that tightrope. A small error, a small mistake, something going wrong, and it makes it really difficult to survive. Colleges, I think, are in a position now of saying, we might be able to survive the next 2 years, but we're not going to thrive. We have to get something in the spending review, because if we don't, then failure will follow. And what we've got is a regime at the moment that says, if you fail, and particularly as the leader of a college, then unfortunately we're going to vilify you and shame you. We're going to say it's all your fault. And I think that's a really toxic mixture. Really tough funding, a tightrope that you're walking, knowing that any type of failure, any type of mistake or error will end up probably with somebody saying you're not good enough in your job. It's not respectful, it's not dignified, and it's not right for a sector that should be about learning and about education. We need to learn why things go wrong. We need a culture in which we can support colleges and leaders to do the best they possibly can. And when things go wrong, because things always go wrong, we need to support people to get through them and to move on. So, it's pretty tough, and you know that as well as anybody. But our role as leaders is where I want to go now. We all have a duty, I think, and you've heard me say this before. We have a duty to be optimistic and positive. Not unrealistic, not delusional, but we have an absolute duty as leaders to provide some hope for students in particular, for staff, for stakeholders. Because if we don't have hope about the future of our sector, then nobody else will. All of us in this room, if we go out there and positively promote what we do, that will make an impact. The budget was disappointing. The current funding levels are woefully inadequate. It's getting scarier than ever to be a leader of a college now. But actually what we've got to do is we've got to step up and show what we're made of. Love our colleges. The video just now was a fantastic week. There was a real sense of togetherness. There was a real sense of pride. There was a real belief that we really stood for something. What I loved most of all was people being able to kind of given permission to feel proud about what they do and feeling part of something bigger than just their college or just their bit of the college. When we were on that march with over 3,000 people in Whitehall, it just felt fantastic. And if you were there, I'm sure you'd join me in thinking that. If you weren't there, next time we do it, please join us, because it really did have an impact. I spoke to quite a few officials. I spoke to a couple of political advisors who said they walked past on purpose, it wasn't just by accident, the rally in Parliament Square, and we were on a double-decker bus, which was quite good fun. I've never spoken on a double-decker bus before. I don't know if you have. It was quite good fun. It was raining on our parade, of course. It would in FE, wouldn't it? But there we were, and these officials and political advisors were walking past, and what they said to me, separately, all four of them said, I wanted to join you. I wanted to show my support for colleges. And these are people in government, in number 10, in DFE. So they're not just anybody. We really did get noticed in a way we've not been noticed before. We had over 200 colleges get involved. There are 266, so it's not bad. It's 3/4. We really must get to 266 doing something, because that's when we can really make an impact. We got noticed, and we got noticed really importantly for doing something positive. It wasn't a negative campaign. It wasn't moaning, it wasn't whinging, it wasn't attacking anybody else. It was a positive campaign where we talked about what colleges should be doing, how much more we could do with investment, and we did it. And really importantly, we did it in partnership with students and the unions and staff, with leaders. And that was also lovely. It was great to see people walking down Whitehall together saying, we care about our colleges. I overheard two union shop stewards saying, and they didn't know I was walking behind them, saying, oh, it's going to be really difficult to really hate our principal after this, isn't it? Because their principal had been part of the march and had shown that she cared as much as they cared. And it kind of humanized the whole thing. It was absolutely fantastic. But do you know what? We're not alone. It's not just us doing all this work. It's not just those advisors. We've got a whole slew of people who've shown their support. And that, just to kind of run through a quick list of some of them. The Chief Inspector, Amanda Spillman, who's speaking tomorrow afternoon, please come to that session, wrote to the Public Accounts Committee a couple of weeks ago saying, The 16 to 18 bit of education is underfunded, and standards and quality is suffering because of a lack of resources. That's a really significant move. We had MPs and peers from across the political spectrum supporting our campaign, talking about why they love their colleges, why colleges need more investment. The FE Commissioner has said many times that we're not funded enough. The Russell Group, who would have believed that? I never thought in my lifetime the Russell Group would say college, let alone say colleges aren't funded enough. But they did. They came out and said they think college funding needs to improve. The Institute for Fiscal Studies has been sharpening its lens on the funding of education and shown very, very clearly that our bit of the sector is the bit that's been most hard done by. The Education Select Committee chair, Robert Halfon, did a blog in the Huffington Post with Lucy Power, Labour MP. So a Tory chair and a Labour MP doing a joint blog together about why colleges need more funding. And officials in DFE as well as ministers, and we'll hear from Anne Milton as well as Andy Street, Mayor of Combined Authority in the West Midlands, showing their support for us. We have lots and lots of people on our side, and we need to build on that. We haven't quite made it. We haven't quite got there. The spending review sometime next year is a massive part of our future. So I think there are 4 things we need to focus on. I'll just quickly run through them. They are profile, prestige, politics and purpose, and all dosed with a massive bit of pride. We have to show how proud we are of our sector. So profile, the Love Our Colleges campaign was great. We need to build on it. We will build on it. We're going to invite college principals and leaders from around the country to create a new campaign group to help us build on it. We want every college to do more activity next year at the right time, together, united, with one voice, because we think that will make a big impact. We need to continue the partnership with the unions and with the NUS to make sure that we've got as many advocates as possible talking about colleges and talking up colleges. And we need the prestige, though. We need to make sure that we're promoting excellence. We're not the second chance. We are the best first place to study. We are the first real chance for so many people in our society, and we need to say that. We need to use resources like the Learning for Life video that we had last night, which show the excellence in our sector. We need to say we are great. We need to believe it, we need to be proud of it, and we need to establish our place, our distinct place in the education system. Schools are really important, universities are really important, but so are colleges, and we need to establish that. So we need to get a new reputation and a profile that we can all be proud of. But we also need, thirdly, to think about the politics. We are living in unprecedented times. It's absolutely bizarre what's happening. It's completely unforecastable. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So what we need to do is to show that colleges are the anchor institutions in our communities. They are the place where people can go to get the learning and skills they need for the future. We can get into communities that voted Brexit because they felt disaffected, that can provide the skills for the people who live in our communities to get the jobs that used to be filled by people from the EU. So we need to get our tactics right, and we need to get much more political about what we do. Not party political. This is a cross-party issue. We can get to all parties in the same way with the same messages. And we need to get to Treasury. Really importantly, in my experience and other people's experience, if you say to Treasury, it's not fair, we used to get more money, we don't anymore, they'll just kind of shrug. They're not interested. What we have to show them is that we can provide a return on investment, and that return on investment will deliver things that are politically important to them. Whether that's job outcomes, whether it's community cohesion, whether it's prevent working more effectively, whether it's just being seen to help people who need some help, trying to make sure everybody in our society benefits. We need to do that. And really importantly, we need to make sure we help Anne Milton and Damien Hines put the case to Treasury. And we need to make sure Anne and Damien put our needs and our students' needs absolutely at the top of their asks for Treasury in the spending review. And I think they will, but we still need to keep the pressure on them. And we keep needing to carry on building our advocates. Getting to your MPs and getting them to write to Treasury is probably the most important act that you can do over the next 6 months. Getting them to say, I want you, Chancellor, to invest in my college is probably the most important thing that you can do. But all of that's not going to be enough in the long term. We also need to think about purpose. And we need to, I think, define ourselves much, much more clearly than we ever have done before. I'm quite optimistic about this now because I think all of the work we did around Love Our Colleges showed that we can have a united voice. We can come together around what defines the common parts of our sector. We can say that we matter for our communities, who we work for, what we are trying to achieve, what impact we have. But we need to do that much, much more clearly. We need to help people like Steph and other national broadcasters to be able to say clearly to the general public what colleges are and what they stand for. We need to tell our own story more succinctly, and we need others to tell our story for us. So we've got an enormous job to do. And I think that's quite easy. I think we can do that. So we're going to work on that over the next few months, because every place, every community needs a successful college. And I think it's as simple as that. We need to explain why that's so. We are driving social, cultural, economic transformation for people, for life as well as for work, for people who are going to be working for more than 50 years, living probably to over 100 years, for employers who will be struggling to find the skilled people they need, for the long term, not the short term, for delivering on so many government priorities: inclusion, social mobility, prosperity, productivity, well-being, happiness, health, you name it almost. We deliver for government, and we need to remember that. And we need to put it in those sorts of terms because it will work for Treasury. And we also need to understand the technology changes that are affecting our society, because if we don't help people cope with and learn for the technology that's coming and the technology that's already here, we will see technology just dividing society even further. We can help by bringing people into the technological revolution so they can cope with the changes, they can adapt, they can learn, and perhaps they can even lead the change that matters. So that's my agenda. Profile, prestige, politics, and purpose, with a big dose of pride that we can all share in, and with a united voice. So the conference is a great starting point for that. It's a great opportunity for us. We can show that we're resilient. We can show that we're not going to bow down. We're not going to just moan and whinge and say it's not fair. We've got to show that we're proud of our colleges, because I think we all are, that we do have a profound impact on society, on people, on communities, on the labour market, that we want to do more, we can do more, we will do more if the investment comes, and that we'll provide a massive return to government if they just trust in us, if they believe in us, if they give the investment for all those things that we can deliver on. Because colleges are driving transformation, and I think we really matter. So let's be proud of that. Let's start planning, let's get tactical, let's get political, because I think we need to, and let's get clever. Thank you very much, and have a great conference.